Exploration in games is something that should feel like a very natural fit, but very often it just feels kind of hollow. See, generally speaking, you need a set of mechanics to support and reward that exploration, but if those mechanics are too regimented or really the only thing involved in the exploration, it can feel unnatural, mechanical, if you will. Open world games usually feel like this to me. I'm not exploring, I'm checking things off of a list, and that can be fun for sure, but it doesn't feel like exploring. There's no whimsy or adventure there. The games that really make you feel like you're exploring a wonderful world and moreover make that exploration feel worthwhile are rather rare. I'm Kalice, and I backed Scrabdackle. Here's why. As with many indie games on Kickstarter, this is a one-person passion project. Scrabdackle in particular is by Jake, or JakeFriend, which is actually a really cute handle. He's worked on games before and has experience working on long-term projects, but this is the first game he'll actually be releasing to the general public. Scrabdackle is an action-adventure game with a major focus on exploration. There's plenty of weird, wonderful, and maybe just a bit twisted places to go to, and people to talk to, and also plenty of stuff to fight with magical powers. You play as a wizard in training who has never before left the Wizard Academy. After being violently ejected from the school by a wizard wielding dark magics, they begin to explore this delightfully scribbly world. The primary inspirations for Scrabdackle are listed as Link's Awakening, An Untitled Story, and Hollow Knight. Out of those, I've actually only played Link's Awakening. You can see those inspirations very clearly in the world layout and perspective. I guess I really should play Hollow Knight if I'm gonna keep talking about these Kickstarters. Oh well. The game is really long. I fell in love with this game almost immediately. Every single aspect of Scrabdackle just oozes personality. The most immediately noticeable aspect is the art style. It's sort of scribbly. It's like colored sketches come to life. This is absolutely adorable. It looks incredibly charming and distinct. It actually visually reminds me of a lot of some of the top tier stuff that came out of Newgrounds, like Alien Hominid. It's got all the indie charm of the golden age of Newgrounds without any of the gross out humor or problematic aspects, which is a very good thing as far as I'm concerned. The music is whimsical and the right kind of weird. Also, it gets very intense at times. The designs are strange, but in that cute kind of way, sort of like Adventure Time or Homestuck. Animations are expressive, from a boss's big attacks to the little bouncy idle animations that pretty much everything has. Just look at Blue's little bounce, they're so cute. The writing is at all times cheeky and very self-aware. At least in the demo, there's no telling what range of emotions could come from the writing of the game proper. Maybe other bizarrely cute works with lots of heart have conditioned me on this. I have a feeling there's gonna be an emotional gut punch or 7 in the full release, but I guess we'll see. As for what's actually here, you might encounter someone standing alone in a cave who doesn't want to seem rude, but kind of came here to be alone and would very much like to be left alone. Thank you. Or someone who you can choose to rag on for not knowing what a potato looks like. Blue actually has very strong characterization. I expected them to pretty much be a blank slate, and that's very much not the case. Not only are there a multitude of dialogue options, some of which allow them to argue with NPCs about specific details or complain about what they're being asked to do, but there's also Blue's notebook. So you can use a scrying spell to learn more information about enemies, locations, and NPCs in the world. These entries will come with a write-up about them by Blue. You also get a few by just progressing through the game. After a foreword from the headmaster of the Wizarding School, the notebook is composed of these entries written from Blue's perspective, which does an excellent job establishing them as an analytical character obsessed with learning more about magic, who is also a bit of a weirdo. I love them already. Scrabdackle was another example of a game where I was absolutely ravenously searching for every single line of writing I could possibly find, which is probably the most glowing praise I can give to the writing of the game. Also, you can just walk away at any time during a conversation if you don't want to fucking deal with someone, which is neat. The combat is sort of like Zelda, but you're blasting things with magic instead of hitting them with a sword. It's a bit run and gunny with a bit of bullet hell thrown in there for good measure. Between the two areas and bosses implemented, there's a pretty good range of difficulty in the game. It's not super punishing, but there are clearly going to be some bosses that are a legitimate challenge. I said a bit of bullet hell, and I was not kidding, which is a wonderful thing as far as I'm concerned. What's here is fairly simple from the player option side of things, though the addition of more spells could radically change how combat flows and feels. You have a loadout that you'll be able to change on the fly. Something on left click, something on right click, and something on spacebar. There's only one of each in the demo, so I can't comment on how smooth switching mid-combat feels. Also, the final version will have controller support. For the demo, you've got a normal magical shot that shoots out damaging shapes. You aim with the mouse and fire with left click. As you fire, you have a magic bar that depletes. It regenerates over time, slightly faster if you're not moving. Spacebar will let you dodge once you get some reliable boots, and holding right click while aiming towards something is what allows you to scry on it, which is what will add an entry in Blue's notebook about that enemy or object. But it takes time. The enemy has to be active and you have to have line of sight. I really like that you have to work a bit to earn the lore. It's fun, and I can't think of a reward that I'd like more than additional writing, lore, and characterization. Wow, I'm a huge nerd. Like, I knew, but fuck. Oh well. So yeah, the demo has a limited moveset. What's here is fun and feels good, but at the moment, most of the complexity and design comes from the enemies. Even just in the demo, there's a decent variety. They move differently, they attack differently, there are different rules for when you can hit them, different enemy compositions do feel very different to fight, and I had fun the whole time. The boss fights especially let the combat shine and have me very excited for the potential for the combat side of things in the final game. And if you don't care about the combat at all, there is an option to just turn yourself invulnerable so you can enjoy the exploration aspect of things without worrying about the challenge of the game. You've probably noticed that I've been using they/them pronouns for Blue. I want to read something out from the Kickstarter on that subject. Scrabdackle is a genderless world, with all characters using they/them pronouns. They just are what they are, peanuts are peanuts, and so on. End quote. As a trans girl, I think it's cool that this is a setting where every single character uses they/them pronouns, and creating a setting that doesn't have gender can likely help Jake not fall into overdone, tropey creative pitfalls when creating and writing characters. It also de facto makes any romance portrayed in the game queer, which is cool. I will say, upon initially reading that quote, I was somewhat reminded of the long-running problematic trope of the only non-binary representation or use of they/them pronouns in fiction being put onto non-human characters, but in a setting where no one is human and gender doesn't exist, I don't think it's really applicable. To be honest, I don't even know if this should count as direct representation. As someone who isn't non-binary, I don't feel qualified to make that call, but it is something different from the norm in regards to gender in a setting, and it seems to be coming from a positive place, so I'm on board with it. I am really torn about something. I'm not sure if the writing or the exploration is my favorite aspect of Scrabdackle. You should be able to see the quality of the writing from literally every single line of it in this video. As for the exploration, when you're exploring, sometimes you'll find an NPC with a cute little interaction, sometimes you'll find one of the collectible gold stars. Gold stars being signifiers of the best wizards, of course. Secrets aren't always easy to find, but you can buy hints and can check your journal to see which areas are missing collectibles. This strikes a good balance of letting you decide how much help you want tracking things down without necessarily having to rely on resources outside of the game, which is always nice. Some gold stars are just hidden, some involve puzzles, some involve combat challenges. There was a lot of variety in tracking them down. I found all of them to be fun, and most of them to be delightfully surprising in some way. Overall, it actually made me feel like I wanted to explore the the world. And it's not just the collectibles, it's everything. The characters, the art style, the writing, the music, even the combat. Immersing myself in the world of Scrabdackle filled me with joy in a way that I haven't really felt since Undertale. Or I guess like the Deltarune demo. I wanted to and still want to spend as much time as I possibly can with this game. It's just super fun. There are some aspects that can't necessarily be reflected in a vertical slice demo. The variety of areas here is promising, but that full breadth is obviously not something that can be experienced yet. I can only try out the spells that are actually in the demo, but the descriptions of the planned ones are interesting. Some of them have navigation and combat applications. For example, the ice spell will supposedly allow you to both push enemies away from you and freeze water so you can walk on it. And most interestingly, the game is non-linear. Once you grab your wand in the first area, you can walk off to whatever region you want. Some will be harder than others, some specific paths will be locked behind fighting something or using a certain spell, but making progress in one area might unlock the ability to travel to another with a shortcut. In the demo itself, I discovered 2 shortcuts, or rather, I found blocked off areas with signs saying that these will be shortcuts to other regions in the final game. It's an interesting concept, and executed on correctly, it could definitely add to that sense of exploration very significantly. As of the writing of this script, there's just over 2 weeks to go for the Kickstarter. It already hit its goal, but I'm hoping it hits a ridiculous number of stretch goals. The Rogues Gallery and the Whispering Deep are the 2 that seem the most interesting to me. Boss remixes are cool, and I always like when things get a bit eldritch. But genuinely, I just want as much content for this game as possible. If the rest of Scrabdackle is up to the quality of this demo, then it could genuinely wind up being one of my favorite games. Everything about it just feels right to me. If this game has at all interested you, then I encourage you to take a look at the Kickstarter and the associated demo. Link is in the description. This has been Kalice. I should really finish Homestuck Brunel. Thanks for watching. Liking and subscribing do really help my channel grow, so if you enjoy what I'm doing here, I'd appreciate if you could take a moment to do that. Also, if you played the Scrabdackle demo, hop down to the comments and let me know what you thought of it. My Patreon exists if you'd like to support me. There's neat bonuses like access to my Discord server with memes and conversations about all sorts of stuff. So feel free to go look at that. Speaking of, big thanks to all of my current patrons like Lotta, Edith, and Sam, all of whom are really cool people. Keep loving what you love, and I'll see you next time with something else. I wonder if there will be a reward for collecting gold stars in the game. My first impulse was to say it should be different costumes, but that's potentially gonna be weird considering the main character seems to be named Blue. Oh, I know! Just give Blue different robe options to match Sonic's alt colors in Smash. That wouldn't be disappointing in any way. What? Obscure as shit! And yet, it just feels right. Okay.